Welcome to Chapter 16, Respiration. First, let's start by just doing a review. A are your true ribs. They're number 1 through 7, and the reason that they're true is the direct connection, even though it's cartilage, to the sternum. If you look at B, these are the false ribs. They're numbers 8, 9, and 10. They attach directly to the costal cartilage. So you can see that these ribs don't really connect directly to the sternum. They join this section of cartilage from number 7. And then C are the false ribs. The floating ribs, and they're number 11 and 12. F is the sternum. It functions as an anchor point for this cartilage. It also provides protection to the organs within the thoracic cavity. So you can take that information and fill in section B on your lecture notes. Now, section C, articulation joints. Let me give you the information you need, and then I will show you what I'm talking about. So, costovertebral, the head of the rib, articulates with a pair of costal facets on the bodies of the thoracic vertebrae. Now remember, it's only thoracic. The costal tubercle articulates with the costal facet of the transverse process. Now, these costovertebral joints are also known as demifacets. All right, so let's look at this image. So the costovertebral joint is right here. It's represented by B. So this right here is the head of the rib. B is the body. So what happens is, as this head of the rib attaches to the vertebrae, there's actually two vertebrae that it attaches with, the one on top and the one on bottom, and those are known as demifacets. So if you look in your textbook at page 269, figure 16-3, take a look at the costal facet. You see the superior one is larger than the inferior one. So if you put a vertebrae on top of one another, it creates that little facet joint for the rib to articulate. Now, if we look at B, another good place to look for this is 16-2 in your textbook. B is the costotransverse joint. So A is the transverse process, B is the actual joint itself, and C is the rib. So this area right here, this is called the costal tubercle, and it articulates with that facet of the transverse process. So let's take a look at a little bit of movement that can occur here. So with inhalation, the ribs will elevate or move superiorly. With exhalation, the ribs move inferiorly or depress. Take a look on page 273 of your textbook, figure 16-10. In a moment, we're going to take a look at these intercostal muscles, but it allows you to kind of see how the muscle will pull on either the rib above or the rib below to form this elevation or depression. All right, we need to just take a brief look at inspiration. So there's quiet inspiration, which occurs most of the time, like right now. The prime movers include external intercostals and the diaphragm. with quiet respiration, 70% of the force is generated by the diaphragm moving inferiorly as you inhale. Now, if we start working a little bit, like let's say you walk up a couple flights of stairs, maybe you're running late for class and you run from the parking lot into the building, that would create a situation where there's deep breathing. So it's to aid in the additional respiration that needs to occur between the alveoli and the blood. If we look at forced inspiration, this occurs with maximal effort and it's associated with hard work. All right, so with deep inhalation, we start to use some of those accessory breathing muscles. With forced inspiration, we're definitely using those assistive muscles. Expiration, it's quiet. It's almost a passive process. So you inhale. When you get ready to exhale, excuse me, diaphragm rebounds, so it moves superiorly. The thoracic cavity will also shrink just a little bit, and that pushes air out of your lungs. Forced expiration, various muscles, don't get into which ones, that's beyond the scope of this class, pull down on the ribs. The exception to that would be the internal costals. Make sure you take a look at those. And then the diaphragm also has muscles that attach to it that pull it back in a superior direction, expelling air. So don't get too hung up on all of the muscles that are really associated with a lot of this. Stick with what the book has. Don't go Googling this. If you want to know more information about it, become a respiratory therapist. All right, the muscles. The diaphragm, remember we talked about it. Phrenic nerve, cervical plexus. Intercostals, external intercostals pull the ribs up during inspiration. The internal costals pull the ribs down during forced expiration. So again, figure 16-10 to get a visualization of how the muscle fibers align. Now, these are considered accessory respiration or inspiration muscles: sternocleidomastoid, pec major, scalenes, levator, costrum, serratus posterior superior. Some of these muscles we've looked at, some of them we haven't. So these two here, actually it would be these three here. Just recognize that they're accessory breathing muscles for inspiration. They're going to lift the thoracic cage up. Now, forced inspiration. Levator, upper traps, rhomboids, pec major. Forced expiratory. Rectus, external oblique, internal oblique, transverse abdominis, superior section, quadratus lumborum, serratus, posterior, inferior. Really, one way to think about it is if a muscle attaches to the trunk of the body, it's probably at some point going to be involved as an accessory breathing muscle. Okay, gang, make sure, let me size this down. So looking back at Module 1, you remember this table? All of these are fair game on your final exam. Origin, insertion, action, nerve. No, it seems like a lot. Learn them in groups if you haven't already. Continue to work on them. Remember these in yellow? You do not need to know the origin, insertion, action, or nerve. Here's our lower extremity. If we look at the trunk, the textbook has a lot of muscles for trunk. The only ones that you need to know, origin, insertion, action, and nerve, are these that are listed here. So if I misspoke earlier a few minutes ago about a couple of these muscles, I apologize, but these are the ones that you are really responsible for. The others just recognize that they exist, and we'll go from there. Okay, see everyone Tuesday. Have a good weekend.